it's me, Open Heart. I'm making another video. This is my third one in a row. I'm getting like so much information, so much to discuss, and so much to kind of like bring out and share. Share. Okay. So I wanted to discuss something I've been wanting actually to discuss for such a long time, but it's been kind of like stuck, like in between. Right here, right here, my stomach. These all these chakras here. I wanted to discuss the manipulation that's going on with this mirror analogy, and why is it manipulation? First of all, anything that makes you feel like you have to do certain things to see things from a perspective, it's manipulation. Something that makes you feel kind of like, well, you're being manipulated for this mirror analogy to take over your intuition or your instinct, because we all have that intuition. When something tells us that something's wrong, we listen to the intuition. But when you use the mirror analogy and you overrate it and you kind of like overdo it, you begin to distrust your intuition. And then everything seems like an auto reflection. Okay, since I'm seeing things from so many different angles, so many different dimensions, because I'm a gatekeeper and I can see all these different things playing out. Okay, the mirror analogy, it just really limits your evolution and your growth and your power to see and to distinguish. And so when people use this, it distorts the message that can come through your inner knowing, through your higher self. Your higher self is the one that always gives you the right answers, the one that gives you the intuition, the instinct, the gut feeling. But when you're always kind of using this analogy of the mirroring, you're not going to grow, because you're not going to hear yourself talking. You're not going to hear that inner voice guide you. And a lot of people use this mirror analogy to not look at their own shit, right? And they use it to manipulate other people to not looking at the things that need to be changed. Okay? If somebody's getting hit in front of you and you're standing there and you say, well, it's a reflection of what's going on inside of me, it's wrong. You're using it out of context. You're using it for the wrong reasons. If something's happening in front of you, it's happening in front of you for a reason. You're there to speak up, to stand up, to say something, to say, hey, stop. Why don't you see it like that? Because if you're using the mirror analogy to always kind of like backfire your own shit into other people, you're never going to learn. You're never going to grow. You're never going to, get in touch with that inner self, that inner truth, there's things that, let me give you an example. There's things outside that I see still in the physical reality playing out. That doesn't mean that it's not because I'm not in tune with myself. It just means that I'm still seeing that because there's still people that are still kind of having a lot of hard time adapting to this new frequency of energy. Okay? So if you're seeing somebody killing another person, I'm just putting an example, okay? And, there's stuff happening around the world that's not going to be all pretty. And it's not going to be all flowers and, pixie dust. We can use our own, power to bless those parts. And when I see the distortion in those parts of the world, just because I'm seeing doesn't mean that they exist within my reality or within my being. It's wrong to think this. You see, you're using everything to kind of manipulate you to think that you are this person, that you are that bomb, whatever's going on. If somebody's doing something, torturing somebody else, that doesn't mean that you are that person. So you're basically always kind of misconstructing and distorting the message that's coming through. There are things, when things, they're kind of more in your surrounding, as far as something like a relationship. If you're in an abusive relationship and you're still there in that relationship, and you kind of like are there because you are not feeling yourself worthy, then okay, the mirror analogy is a perfect way to use it, and that's fine. And because it does kind of reflect what you're feeling inside for yourself. So if you're letting somebody else treat you bad, basically it's because you yourself are not loving yourself. And so, but if you are saying, well, this person books, if you're getting mistreated, and say that I use a mirror analogy, like the other person that's mistreating me has the knowledge of the mirror analogy, right? Or and they would use it against me and say, well, if I'm bothering you, the way I'm treating you, and you're getting mad and you're getting frustrated with my actions, then that means that it's you, because it's a reflection of you, and it's wrong. See how this is just distorted, and so nobody grows. So both people are throwing themselves a mirror analogy, and nobody grows. Nobody integrates their own truth and walks away with their own truth. So when the person uses this analogy as a reverse psychology to not change, to not look at his shit because he's mistreating a person, and it say that he's an abusive person, and he's abusing verbally, mentally, or physically another person, and the other person's like, you know what, like, I'm done with you, you're this, you're abusive, you're a verbal abuser, and the person's like, well, everything that you're seeing in me, it's inside of you. In a sense, this person is still probably stuck in the relationship because she doesn't see herself worth it. And I'm just putting an example as a woman. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm trying to make anybody better, but these things happen. And when we use the mirror analogy to protect ourselves, because we don't want to see what's going on, because you're going to have people that are more aware of the truth, and you're going to be they're going to be more aware because they're actually connecting to their divine essence, their divine truth, not somebody else's truth, not in a book. There's things that can resonate with our heart when we're reading a book, when we're reading a quote, and they resonate with our heart. That's perfect. But if we're just constantly just grabbing these analogies and these quotes from the outside world, and we're not really integrating our own divine knowledge and our own divine truth, then that is just distorted. You're going to use it to distort yourself, because we have to understand one thing, okay? The ego. The negative ego, and I call it negative because they're going to say like, oh, well, it's not negative because all it's one, another analogy, okay? It's being used without proper integration, without proper knowing from different angles and dimensions or whatever, okay? Well, so you have this, analogy of using, all these different analogies because they are just protecting you. You're not actually, want to grow. And the ego, the negative ego is when it's not properly balanced and not trained by your conscious self. What it does, it reacts as an attack, and it wants to intellectualize everything. So that's kind of like the way to distort the message, because it wants to use everything you read and just put it in here in your mind, but not here in the knowing. And the ego is very good at this. It's been protecting you for such a long time. So we have to understand every perspective from every angle, so we won't be tricked by our ego. But once you start to train your ego start to really work with you as a team. Because that way, unity cannot be unity consciousness until it's unity consciousness here. And that means your ego, your childhood, your teenage consciousness, and yourself, your conscious self. That's why when I kind of like, not dispute, but discuss certain things about awakening with other people, and I can feel their energy distorted, I don't really get into the argument or want to discuss it, because it is pointless. It is pointless because they're still in the intellect. And a lot of people might not like it when I just cut them off. Sometimes these people really just have to go through their own integration and their own information in order to get what I'm trying to say. Because then if I get in there and I explain them from what I'm seeing, they get in this high horse and they start to tell me that, that I think I know everything. But it's not that I think I know everything. It's just that I'm really connecting with my inner consciousness, with my inner self, with my higher self, because it's all one in one body. So it's not that I know everything. I just know what I know and what I feel in my heart. And so, there's times where we're using these analogies. It doesn't work. It's not going to work because it's just going to distort your thinking, your knowing, your inner trust, your inner guidance. And a lot of people are just using this to manipulate you. They're not using it to help you grow in your own divine truth. okay, in your own divine truth. And so when you're using this to kind of like, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it, everything's fine, everything's, you know, if you're seeing something bad out in the world, or you're seeing something bad in a person, if you're calling it out, if you're, you know, one thing let me point this out. There's a difference between judging somebody, and there's a difference between condemning, and there's a difference between, well, judging it is kind of like condemning, but if you're just giving your opinion about something and you're bringing your own inner light and your truth about this distortion, it doesn't mean that you're judging it or condemning it. It just basically means that you're bringing your own divine truth. So people that are kind of on the other side of it, and they're kind of distorted with what they're doing, they get really like upset because they want to use this mirror analogy to not really look at what's going on, because we have to understand things from different angles, and if we don't do this, we're never going to be really grasping the whole truth. And so, and we got to understand that within ourselves, you know. So this analogy is just it's not making you trust yourself. It's actually kind of like hindering you from growing. There's things that are just going to really be a reflection of yourself, like when you're kind of like being controlled by these emotions, when you're controlled by anger, hate, and despair, and all this. It's perfect. It's a reflection of what you're feeling inside. It's a reflection of what you have in your subconscious. But there's things that are being played out outside of us that have nothing to do with us. But of course, we've been feeding that, you know. But how do we make a change if we don't acknowledge it and make ourselves aware of what needs to be changed? And so, you know, if you're in a bad relationship, you can't use the mirror analogy. You can use it to an extent because you're not feeling worthy of yourself, but then you can be like, well, you know, this person's hitting me because I'm hitting myself. It's like it's kind of complex if you really think about it, you know, because just, you know, I if I can really show you, you know, what I'm feeling inside and what my higher self brings to the table, you know, I could explain it better, you know. But you know, I'm limited sometimes in a way because of the density still within my body. You know, I'm not all integrated and I'm not enlightened like some people think that I am all there. It's not like that. Like, you know, I have my downloads and my information coming through, and I have my energy being activated, but you know, I have a lot more to go. But you know, what gets me through this whole thing, and putting aside analogies, you know, putting aside analogies from other people, is my inner knowing. You know, it's me being in tune with myself. You gotta trust that. You really gotta trust yourself. If you smell bullshit, that's because you smell bullshit, and you see it. Hey, you acknowledge it. You say, hey, there's shit. But if you say, well, that shit belongs, it's inside of me, then you're not really kind of bringing a higher understanding of things, and actually bringing about change. Because sometimes we're going to be the teachers of others to be like, hey, wake the fuck up, you know, like, you're doing this wrong, like, you know. We're going to have to be that person, and a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for that. You know, I have kids, and so for me, it's understandable why this has to take place. Like I said, you know, if you're going to use mirror analogy, you know, make sure that you're using it, you know, make sure that you're using it with understanding and really understanding yourself, because you have different aspects of yourself. And when you're healed, when you clean your home, you're not gonna confuse other people's shit with your own stuff, you know, with your mess, you know. Say, for instance, you know, I clean my home, you know, I've put this as an example. If I clean my home, and say my friend comes over, or a visitor, whatever, you know, somebody comes over my house and they bring a bunch of dirt and all, you know, their feet are all dirty and stuff, and I see it coming to my door, and I'm like, hey, take off your shoes, you're bringing dirt into my house, you know. And then they say, well, that dirt is inside of you. It's not, you know, I don't know, like, I don't even know why would we even use it, you know. It's manipulation, you know. It's like, and if you're not aware of that, you're going to be manipulated. You're going to be manipulated to do certain things, say certain things, and be certain things, and not be your true self. So if I would had a low self-esteem, say for instance, and I'm not saying that it happens all the time, I'm not saying that, everyone uses this, but say for instance, if I had like a low self-esteem, this is where the balance of the feminine and the masculine energy come into place. And the person that's bringing in the dirt with their own, with their feet or with their shoes, tells me that it's my dirt because, I'm the one that's seeing that dirt outside, so it has to be my dirt. And then if I had like a low self-esteem, I'll say, well, yeah, you're right, you might be right, I'm the dirt, come inside my house, and they make a mess out of your house. At the end, it's going to be your fault because you're being manipulated and you're not being properly in tune with yourself to understand that that shit's not your shit, and that dirt's not your dirt, and that person needs to go outside, take out their fucking shoes before they come in your house. And that is where you need to decipher. You need to learn how to decipher energy. And if you don't know how to decipher energy, you're never going to be able to really tap into yourself, because it's all about energy, guys. It's all about knowing the occult and the magic behind energy, and why there's still some distorted energy. And it doesn't mean that we're against it. It doesn't mean that we are condemning it. It just means that we need to call it out. We need to call it out, transmute it, get rid of it. A lot of people, they don't understand this because, they're still kind of haven't healed that ego, the child within. There's so many aspects of us that need to be healed. That's why when you clean your shit, you don't take other people's shit, and they won't be able to manipulate you through these analogies and these different intellectual information and knowingness coming from, I don't really know, from not, well, I do know, but so just be careful, walk your journey and be aware, and learn how to decipher stuff, and practice your intuition right here, your heart. What does your heart tell you? Bye, guys.